Okay, here's the third and last installment of this video lecture series on substance abuse. So there are a few, there are many types of illegal drugs. I want to talk to you about the main types, have a little bit of discussion about those. I could take a lot of time going through all the different types of illegal drugs and the different disorders associated with dependence and whatnot. But let's hit the main ones. Alcohol. Again, we already said that 75% of high school seniors in this country admit to having tried alcohol at least once. 3 out of 4. In some schools, I suspect it's probably even higher than that. Again, not passing judgment on anyone or any of you, but you guys are in high schools, you probably know better than I. It's a huge problem. Every high school has a story about how someone has been under the influence of alcohol, gotten behind the wheel of a car, been in an accident, maybe there have even been fatalities. So it can be a real problem. It's dangerous because it relaxes your inhibitions. It makes you more likely to do things, to say things, to act out in dangerous ways. So adolescent use of alcohol is linked to fighting, property damage, academic problems or failure, occupational problems, problems with jobs, and also conflicts with law enforcement officials. And it contributes to nearly 100,000 deaths every single year. Tobacco is another big problem in schools. Obviously, it's not illegal for adults to use tobacco, but tobacco use and abuse often begins in adolescence, even really younger than you guys who are watching this video. I have been in so many different high schools and middle schools in this county, and every time I run into a restroom, a student restroom, to use the restroom, I see used tobacco in the urinals, on the floors. It's everywhere. So I know it's a problem just by looking around. It contributes to almost 500,000 deaths every single year. Cancer that comes from using tobacco. I would say it's an epidemic problem in our middle and high schools. And of course, marijuana. Yeah. In my opinion, maybe this is a naive opinion, but I think this is my opinion, probably the most commonly used and popular illegal drug used in high schools. Again, indicting my own friends and peer group when I was in high school, I'd say probably most of my friends smoke marijuana, if not regularly, experimentally. It's a mild hallucinogen. Smoking small amounts can lead to early stimulation or excitement, and then a subsequent feeling of drowsiness. Now, we're starting to see a lot of research, and we're going to talk about this more specifically when we meet in class, that marijuana actually has a lot of positive benefits. There's research suggesting that it has a ton of medicinal benefit, and that it's probably not nearly as dangerous as alcohol. So we'll debate that, and that's a debate worth having, and a discussion really worth having in class. And I want to do that in class so we can actually talk, and I want your feedback on that, so we'll do that at a different time. But smoking large amounts can lead to distortions in auditory perceptions as well as distortions in visual perception. So in other words, if you smoke a lot of marijuana over an extended period of time, it can impact the way you hear things and the way that you see things. It can distort those perceptions. So those, not a good thing necessarily. Now, cocaine was more popular in the 1980s, but it's kind of been making somewhat of a comeback of late. Cocaine is a powdered derivative of the coca plant. When introduced in 1860, it was considered a medical breakthrough because it was used to treat depression, fatigue, as well as some other medical and possibly mental health disorders. We soon figured out that the drug was highly addictive, so the government controlled it in 1906. It's illegal now because we know that it can create some really dangerous situations and symptoms for people. Cocaine produces the following effects: extreme mood elevation. They may feel wonderful, on top of the world, almost like a manic person in the manic phase of bipolar disorder. They feel elated or euphoric. It's like the best feeling that you've ever had, multiply it by 5 or 6. That's how someone on cocaine might feel. So you can imagine how it would be hard to get that person to come off of cocaine or to stop using it. Grandiose feelings. Grandiose means large, out of proportion with reality. Heightened physical prowess. They feel like they can lift cars, jump from buildings. So you can see how this can be very dangerous. Snorting is the most common method of use. Freebasing, which is smoking the crystals of cocaine, is another popular way. IV use, intravenous use, that's injecting it straight into your bloodstream, can produce a very powerful high and very quickly. 15 to 20 seconds is all it takes. Speedballing. This is intravenous use of cocaine with other drugs, kind of like a cocktail. This is actually what killed actor and comedian John Belushi. If you've heard of that name, he was a member of the cast of Saturday Night Live in the late 70s, I believe into the early 80s. Chris Farley, if you've heard of him, was also a member of Saturday Night Live. He died the same way, speedballing, using cocaine. I'm skipping that slide purposely because you can't see it, and we'll do some more with that later. And then meth. This has been one of the biggest problems in our area, and that's why I've kind of chosen this one. It's still a big problem. It's a synthetic drug. It's manufactured. It's not naturally grown. It takes ingredients from different parts and different things to make this, but it's highly addictive. It's a huge problem in Kanawha County. It's a huge problem in our area. In the U.S., almost 15 million Americans over the age of 12. That's roughly 6% of the entire population reported using this drug. That's just mind-boggling to me. That's a lot. 6% of the entire population has used it. Juvenile court judges report that growing numbers of adolescents appearing in court due to manufacture, sale, and/or use of this drug. They're seeing all kinds of problems with this, and certainly it is a huge, huge problem. Youth use of illegal drugs in the U.S. Again, it starts pretty young, 12 to 13, 3.3% of people, according to these statistics, 3.3% of people aged 12 to 13 years old report using illegal drugs within the last month. Children aged 14 to 15, almost 9%, 8.9% report using illegal drugs within the last month. Now we're getting into your age group here, 16 to 17. 16% report using illegal drugs in the last month. 18 to 20 years old, so we're talking about seniors in high school, first couple years of college, 21.6% report using illegal drugs just in the last month alone. That's more than 1 out of 5. So that gives you some perspective. And you guys can think about your peer groups, people you know, even yourselves, and evaluate these statistics, see if you think it's accurate. I suspect it is pretty much accurate. 21 to 25, it starts to tail off a little bit into college and a little bit beyond college, 18.5%. But those are still big numbers. And as you progress, as you age, as people get older, those percentages go down. But right now, you are right in this wheelhouse, right here, this 16 to 20 years old, you are at your greatest chance of using illegal drugs. There are factors that make young people higher risk for later substance abuse and use after they have first used. Sometimes people just use once or twice and they're done. But there are some warning signs or some red flags. Early initiation is one. Use of any illegal drug by the age of 10 to 12 increases chances that that person will continue to use and or abuse. School problems are another indication, like low grades, truancy, behavior problems. Those are all fairly strong predictors of subsequent drug use or abuse after initial use. Also, family problems, lack of parental support, lack of parental guidance. If parents are absent, if they're just not there, or sometimes parents, and I've seen this, and I've experienced this with some friends of mine when I was in high school. Sometimes parents will actually support these alcohol parties and these drug parties. They'll actually endorse and let their children bring friends over so they can control it and keep an eye on it. But this, unbeknownst to these parents, increases the chances that their children and their peers will continue to use after initial use. So, and then the last slide, peer influences. Relations with peers who use illegal drugs. You kind of tend to act like the people that you hang out with, for the most part. Inability to resist negative peer influence. If your friend jumps off a bridge, are you going to follow him? Well, maybe. So if you can't resist negative peer influence, then you're likely to be sucked into that. And also something people don't think about a lot is personality. And I saw this a lot with the people that I hung out with in high school. And a lot of you watching this video might fall into this category. A lot of times we think of the kids who are in trouble, they're on the fringe, they're not doing well in school, they don't make good grades. These are the ones who are using drugs, right? Well, you've got just as many, if not more, people on the other end of that strata, or other end of that continuum. The popular kids, the smart kids, the hardworking kids. These are the kids who don't conform all the time. They're strongly independent. They're working hard. They have a tendency to rebel a little bit, tend to use and fall into this high-risk group as well after initial use. So a lot of times these kids will continue using drugs after they've tried them just one time. So I think that's very interesting as well. And that's it for the third and last installment of the substance abuse video lecture. Thank you.